إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد. MashaAllah, Sister Ndidi, how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Of course, this class is entitled, Purification of the Heart. And we did it once. I went through the book and I tried to teach, each chapter. I think it went pretty well, but to spare people the redundancy of listening to me do that again, or, I just thought it would be more exciting, more engaging, more interesting if we had different people come in on a weekly basis and together we could discuss the chapter, the idea. I mean, we're sticking with the book, but we're not limiting our exploration to the book. We're not limiting our conversation to the book, but we're following, the outline of the book. So the chapter this week that we're covering, and of course, this book, Untitled Chapter, is about the diseases of the heart, right? Maladies of the heart, the ill conditions of the heart. The Sheikh, goes through, talks about each, disease of the heart, and then gives remedies. Then talks about, how to cure those diseases. So today we were supposed to cover hatred, right? Hatred. So when I say that to you, right, when you think of hatred as a disease of the heart, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? What are just some of your initial impressions, some of your initial ideas?
Just kind of stuff that your mama would say, which is you shouldn't hate anybody, and hate is poison. And whatever it is that you're hating is poisoning you. You're putting you're busy hating something and it's busy poisoning you, right? And so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, here, he first, the first line that he mentions is where he differentiates between hate for the sake of Allah and hate for other than Allah. So like we hate injustice, we hate oppression, right? We hate dishonesty, we hate exploitation, right? These are things that we are supposed to hate. Imam Shafi'i, famously said that if it weren't for like anger, if it weren't for like, the ability to see things and to be upset about what you're seeing, then nobody would ever move to address injustice. Nobody would ever challenge, things that are really contemptible, things that should be hated. So when before talking about like removing hate from our hearts, what are some things that like you personally, like these are things that I hate?
Injustice. Always. Ever since I was a little child, my dad used to have me watch Eyes on the Prize. If you ever seen it, like the PBS special, and it's like a 12-piece series. And when I really just kind of saw like the social and racial injustices that underwent like my forefathers, my foreparents, it just burned me up inside. And it was unfair, it was unright, it wasn't righteous. And I think that's my earliest recollection of really hating something. So, yeah.
What, like thinking about what you said, and like, I'm with you. I think it's almost impossible to be a Black man or a Black woman in this country and not have a strong distaste, if not a disdain, for injustice, because you have either firsthand or secondhand experienced injustice and perhaps live injustice on a daily basis. What does it mean to you to hear people say, hate the sin and not the sinner, right? In this case, I guess, hate the injustice and not the people guilty of the injustice. Does that mean anything to you, or does that just sound like flowery rhetoric? Does that speak to you at all?
You know, I've heard that euphemism. I think the thing that comes to mind is hate the sin or hate the, but hold the sinner in account, right? And I think that you know, I actually attended a lecture you gave with years ago in the Nigerian community, and we were talking about forgiveness, right? And you were talking about how important it is to how, like, the context of forgiveness. It's not this absolute forgiveness of somebody, especially if certain things, you know, there's certain harms that people do that are they're grave harms that people have done against others. However, you know, it could be you. I remember you were saying it's something you could even reconcile. You don't necessarily have to just give them a full, like, mea culpa, a full absolvement in terms of just blanketed as opposed to the action. But I think to answer your question, I don't know. I went to this really amazing talk that Imam Fode Drame had about the 7 things Allah loves and the 7 things that Allah loves not. And one of the things that he was sharing was about, I can't remember which attribute, but he was talking about, like, the concept of adl, just in terms of, like, just balancing out justice with, help me out, what's the other half of that verb, like the other half of that?
I'm not sure. You know, Imam Fode is on a very high level when it comes to Arabic and tafsir, and you know, but
the concept where I was going with it was to say,
I mean, usually justice is mentioned as the counterpart of mercy.
There you go. That's it. So I believe it was justice and mercy that you have, that we have to have both, right? And so when you look at Revelation and how Islam is a continuation of the things that we were taught, a continuation of prophetic revelation from even before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, he was saying that, you know, with Judaism, it was all justice. It was heavy on the justice, light on the mercy. Christianity was heavy on the mercy, light on the justice, right? So what we're practicing is the completion of both of them. So what I'm saying is, yes, we hate the sin, but we hold the sinner in account for said actions. That's my understanding. And speaking about what you mentioned earlier about hating something, you know, what we're supposed to, you know, if we do anything, it's for Allah's sake, right? Everything that we do, good, like, you know, whether we love something or we hate it or just strongly dislike, whatever, it's for Allah's sake. So that is the vein in which it's valid. That's why the dua my mom used to teach us was, grant us your love, grant us the love of those who love you. Grant that you may do good, that we may do good deeds to earn your love. Grant that your love is dear to ourselves, is dearer to us than ourselves, our family, and our wealth. Right?
MashaAllah.
We're loving for the sake of Allah, and we're disliking or we're hating for the sake of Allah.
MashaAllah. You know, when I think about love for the sake of Allah, I do think when people say, you know, hate the sin and not the sinner, and that, you know, those, you know, kinds of ideas and phrases, I think that where they are different is that if your hatred is for the injustice, for example, if the individual that was guilty of that injustice repented, if they sought to make amends with you, if they repented to Allah, you would have nothing against them because your issue with them was the act of injustice. It wasn't that you had something personal against them. So that even if they repent, even if they seek to make amends, even if they accept accountability, you still would have this thing that, no, it's not just about what you were doing or what you've done. Man, I hate you. right? And well, I don't hate you, Ndidi, you know what I'm saying? That was said with a little too much emphasis, you know what I'm saying? That was there with a little too much emphasis. You know, I don't hate you, Ndidi, but you know, it's very easy to get into you know, the lessons contained in a text like this, because they do speak to us very passionately and very powerfully. And I often think, you know, people that I've had really negative experiences with, um, do I have it in my heart to really like not hate them? You know what I mean? Like, you know, do I, you know, am I capable of that kind of, you know, magnanimity and forgiveness that I really don't have? You know, I dislike what was done to me. I do think there needs to be some accountability. If the person is subjected to punishment for what happened, I would feel okay with that. But I don't, I don't have a personal hatred for them at all. That's a challenge, man.
It's something that we have to work on every day and throughout our lives. You know what I'm saying? But you know, it makes me think about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, we know that Hind paid freed a slave on the condition that Hind, one of the who at the time her and her husband were enemies of Islam. You know. And during her brother and father were killed in battle, in righteous battle, right? And she never forgave that, and because she never forgave that, she you know she paid a slave his weight in riches, so that and basically his manumission, his freedom, you know, in order that he kill Hamza, right? And he succeeded in killing Hamza, you know, and obviously Hamza was someone who was dear to the Prophet, so I saw him. And Hind, you know, her husband, even the freed slave, actually, they all became Muslim. And thereafter, you know, it's like he's Muslim now, right? So like, even though he battled, you kill Hamza, you know, you not accept you as my brother in Islam now, right? And so there was I'm paraphrasing a narration that I understood, but you know, when I think there was like a gathering or something like that, and I think he wanted to greet the Prophet ﷺ in some type of manner. And so, you know, the Prophet is like, you know, you're my brother, you know, I'm gonna treat you as my brother, but you also killed Hamza, right? So I'm not going to shun you. I'm not going to, you receive all respect as my brother, you know, in Islam, you know, but we probably not gonna be tight like that, you know what I'm saying? Every time I see you, I remember Hamza, right? So human, this is a very human understanding. So he's like, this is a concept, like I guess what you're saying of like, you know, hating the sin, but you know, acknowledging the person, the former sinner who's now reprieved of his sins because he's taken a shahada, he's now a Muslim, so he's anew. But there's still this hurt that he's caused, and a triggering that the Prophet is being triggered. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we can coexist. So there's ways to go about it. And we have to kind of find out what that shade is for us, you know, without holding it in ourselves in a way that it poisons ourselves. And I think that is one of the biggest parts. And that's why I really appreciated your talk on forgiveness, because the reality is so many of us are holding on to unforgiveness. And it doesn't mean to absolve people of just blanketly, you know, it doesn't mean you have to be around them, but a lot of times forgiveness is for the individual. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, that story that you mentioned, and mashallah, you know, you can't teach a chapter on hatred or forgiveness without talking about that story. It's so, you know, I wish more scholars, more presenters, you know, more teachers, you know, mentioned the story like you did. Mashallah, I'm glad, you know, you as a teacher incorporated it, into tonight's session. But the manumitted or emancipated slave that killed Hamza, he's referred to in the sources as Washi. And the word Washi means like wild or barbaric or like uncouth. And I almost feel like it's a it's a pejorative almost to refer to him that way. So I'm like, I gotta do some historical research, man, and learn his name, because Washi is like a name they gave him. But one of the things about that story that's interesting is it highlights the difference between murder and a person who dies in warfare. It's not the same thing, right? Because if two people meet on a battlefield and they're fighting on opposing sides, it's kind of like generally understood that they could inflict each other with mortal wounds. That's why we're here. But it's also understood that this is bigger than like, I don't have anything personally against you. It just so happens that I'm fighting with this side of this conflict. When you break down the belligerents, I'm over here and you're over there. So, this is what war is about. May Allah save us from that. But that's what it's about. But Washi was hired. He did not partake in the battle and, got the better of Hamza and took his life in the course of fighting that battle. Rather, Washi was hired to assassinate Hamza. So when the battle commenced, he wasn't like fighting. He was there for one thing and one thing only. And if you look at his condition as an enslaved person, hey man, look, I don't know this man. I don't have anything against him, but for the right price, for my liberty,
freedom papers. He was going to,
for the right price, for the right liberty, I will do that. And so we know he succeeded, as you very delicately put it. He wants to greet the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet says, of course he's Muslim and he'll be afforded that respect, but I don't like to look at him, right? I don't like to look at him. And I think that, as you mentioned, that story dictates kind of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam is an example of the broadest horizons of human moral perfection, right? The broadest horizons of human moral perfection are represented in the Prophet ﷺ. And if he can forgive somebody, but it ain't like, it's not, so that sometimes is the very best. Like there's nothing after that. There's nothing higher than, like, for some offenses, if a person is able to say, look, I don't want a relationship with him. I don't want to spend time with him. I don't even want to look at him. But it's enough that I don't want Allah to punish him on Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's the forgiveness. That's the removal of hatred that I can express. That when he meets Allah, I don't want him to be punished. That's all I have, though. Sometimes that's the best you can give.
Best you can give, and that's gracious, right?
And that's gracious.
That whoever it is that Allah, that Prophet Muhammad, prays for, that they don't receive punishment. That you know what I'm saying, like, or that he wishes that good on, that's considered for them. So it's like that's all the man-committed slave can really ask for at this point. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, it doesn't know how to do.
When you are seeking the person, the sinner, or the person who's inflicted the wound, you don't always get to negotiate. You know what I'm saying? How the accountability is, what the reward for that is, or how that's going to go. You don't get to account for that, but you don't get to negotiate that. It's really about, I just think that when that was gracious enough, honestly. That's all.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So the next line he says is that the cure for this kind of very personal hatred, and this is this is another challenge, right? The cure is to pray for the person that you despise. Woo! Wait a minute. We gonna. He said, if you want to, yeah, right. You know, wait a minute. The cure for that kind of hatred is to make dua for them, right? Is to, you know, can you raise your hands and pray for them?
Woo!
You know what I'm saying? You know, can you actually, you know, can you bring yourself to say, you know, God guide them, or perhaps God guide them, God prevent them from hurting anybody else like they've hurt me.
Mm.
You know, God correct them gently, right? May God give them an awareness of the harm that they've done, you know, and may God, you know, help them to rectify their condition. Man, that's.
Let me tell you something about the prayer of the oppressed.
Okay. Tell me about it.
Listen, I had a situation where I felt very oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't wish bad on this person. This is a person who is like extended family. I didn't wish bad on this person. I'm not even gonna say but, because they say everything before after but is like null and void, right? But
I don't know. You got some statements need qualification.
Howsoever, so I didn't wish anything bad on them. But what I did pray was that they become aware of what they're doing, right? And that it ceases.
Mm-hmm.
That person really became eventually stricken with an ailment. Let's say this thing about that particular ailment. I didn't wish that on them. I would never wish anything, because I always feel like whatever you put out there, you make it back. I don't do that. I don't.
Yeah, Allah
Allah protect us all. But what I do know is that the way that that person was moving, they were moving with hubris and arrogance, and the ailment humbled them and made them from being an oppressor to being, you know, like their whole life, you know, changed, and they became more understanding, more compassionate, and all of these different things. And I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, but all I'm simply saying is, you know, you really gotta be, you know, just it's,
لا حجاب بين الله وبين المظلوم. You know, there's no barrier between God and the oppressed. And you know, this is a reminder to us. You don't want to be an oppressor, because if somebody is raising their hands to God to petition him about you, this is the person that's hurting me. This is the person that's harming me. This is the person that is oppressing me. The Prophet ﷺ is telling you, God will answer that prayer. So be very careful how you decide to treat people, right? What he's talking about here is kind of like, okay, if you know you have something against this person, like I just, you know, because I'm gonna tell you something, man. One of the blessings of community is not a group of people that you can kind of curate like you can do your online community. You know, your online community, friend them, unfriend them, you know what I'm saying? Oh, that's my girl. Okay, that, you know, right, you know, you feel me? But when it comes to real community, sometimes you are forced to deal with people whose personality is great against you. You know, you know, I love all the Muslims in Chicago, but there's a few brothers. Oh, they hard on me, and I'd imagine I'm hard on them. You know what I mean? I'd imagine I'm hard on them. You know, but the challenge of not allowing that to become like this dislike of my brother. You know, like sometimes like I can feel myself in the presence of one of these brothers. I can feel myself growing spiritually. I can feel it when I'm trying to, like, hey, how are you? How's the family? How's the kids? Mashallah, 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 and just trying to maintain like a cordial, fraternal relationship.
Yes.
is pushing me beyond my nuts. It's bringing out something better in me. It's bringing out something deeper in me. It's bringing out something more in me than just self-indulgence. Like I'm trying to appreciate this brother because he's my brother, in spite of the fact that our personalities are like, electrons and protons. You know what I mean? They just don't, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I feel like there's this misnomer that, we're Muslims, so we're all supposed to be like best friends and everybody's supposed to, just be like it just in this perfect harmony and all of this type of stuff. They're like in life, you're going to have to navigate different people, different spaces, different energies. That's part of it, right? The same thing that says, the ayah from Quran that says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We created mankind in the most excellent mold. And then there's one that says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We have created mankind in struggle and toil, right? So there is no, what I would say, nirvana that is going to be consistent in our lives, let alone in our families, let alone in the brother and sisterhood of Al-Islam. These are the challenges and the butting of heads that kind of grow us and build us. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, these are the things that help us sharpen our sword and help us earn, inshallah, paradise.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. And I think that in a sense is kind of what he's talking about. Like this person that you have this thing for, if you can push yourself to get past that personal offense, that personal slight, that might be deep, right? It might cut deep. It might, but you can get past that and evade hating them. Like I don't hate the person. You're gonna feel yourself grow spiritually. You're gonna feel yourself getting bigger than just your emotions, just your. Which is not to say I don't want to cast emotions as just things to be overcome. Emotion is very important to us. Emotion is essential to who we are and what we are. But when you can, in spite of strong feeling about something, choose to do something you think God is pleased with. That's one of the ways that you grow spiritually, right?
And the earthly reward, right? / spiritual reward is that you grow as a person, you grow as a human, you grow spiritually, all these different things. But if you need additional motivation, we can look at the narration of, and all of these are paraphrases. I don't have these specifically.
We can talk.
But this is, when you look at the what they say, some people entered the masjid, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu told his companions, like, that's the person of paradise, right? And they were like, oh, well, why is this? Everyone wants to know, like, what makes them a person of paradise?
Right.
And did you already cover this?
No, bismillah.
Like, well, what makes them a person of paradise? So one of the companions, it's like, yeah, I gotta know, like, what makes this person? Because they don't look, they're clothed, nothing about them looks particularly so amazing that this person is, a person of paradise. So he kind of, suggested, like, hey, I'm kind of down and out, or whatever it is he told them, like, can I stay with you? Because he really wanted to really investigate, like, what makes this person the person of paradise? So the brother said, okay, you can stay with me, So he stayed with him and he observed him for a period of time. And then afterwards he said, I gotta confess, I didn't really need to stay with you, but the Prophet ﷺ told us, praise and peace be upon him, told us that you're a person of paradise. Like, what is it that you do? What makes you so special that you would be a person of paradise? And he's like, he thought about it and he said, I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. And then he thought about it and he said, you know what? There's one thing that I do. He said, I never go to sleep. Like, I never go to sleep with hatred in my heart for anyone or unforgiveness. Like, I forgive every person, or, you know what I'm saying, that's in my life. You know what I'm saying? So he never goes to sleep with that. And it's just like, wow. So, like, if paradise is a motivation for you, then that's a reminder. And because some of us, the beauty, and I had this conversation before, the beauty of paradise I want that. I want that for myself. Other folks are like, I just don't want to go to hell. I just don't. Yeah, they're like, you know, those tales of fire and brimstone. I don't want that. You know, I don't want to be running around with my entrails coming out. I don't want that, right? So for some people, staying away from hell is the motivation. For some people, going to paradise is motivation. So if paradise is a motivation for you, then that is something that you want to wrestle with so that you can grow and inshallah get that reward. If you just want to stay away from hell, then also understand that, you know, those that you forgive or what have you, like these are this, you're going to get that reward and you'll get some of that off of your scale, you know what I'm saying, on the day of judgment, right? So of your sins to be alleviated, right? Or if you're able to forgive others, then understand that you've also done some things. And so hopefully you'll get some folks who will forgive you some of the things that you put out there. So
Alhamdulillah. No, I mean that hadith is very beautiful. And when you it's aspirational, you know, the idea that, man, I don't let that stuff sit on me, man. I don't, you know, I have to protect my own heart from hatred. Like I think that, you know, you know, hatred of people is a vain pursuit. You know, I remember once, you know, in fact, I was watching a documentary. My brother Malik Shaw from Memphis recommended it to me, but King in the Wilderness. And you know, I studied. It's about MLK. You know, about, I'm trying to think what exact initiative. It covered the latter part of MLK's life, but actually a story of MLK that took place in Gage Park, right here in the city, in Gage Park. You know, and Dr. King was saying, dude, in Birmingham, Alabama, Red Hills of Mississippi.
Yeah.
I had never seen the kind of racial hostility that I saw on the southwest side of Chicago, you know. And when I saw the video footage of how these people were, now look, you know, I mean, look, man, Dr. King was motivated by principles that were higher, right? And I remember somebody hit that man with like a lead pipe or something like that. They threw it, something and hit him, and they said, and he started bleeding. They said, Dr. King, are you hurt? Are you? He said, oh man, I've been hit so many times it don't even bother me. You know, I've been hit so many times it don't even, you know, I don't even pay attention to it. And I'm thinking like, man, this is somebody that, you know, he was so committed to what he was doing that he was unswerving, unstinting, just doing what he did. And there was one, I think a woman or a man confronted him, racial slurs, epithets, and he just said, hold on. Alhamdulillah. I'm good. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. I don't know. Nobody run away, inshallah. It's just some dust or something like that. Just some dust or something. These days, you know, man, look, I'm thinking you sneeze in public, man, you know, somebody might zip you in a bag and toss you, you know, hey, get them out of here. You know, but in any event, woman came up and just, you know, spewing all this, you know, just animosity and hatred. And Dr. King simply said, you know, that requires too much energy.
It does.
That require to somehow summon that kind of hate, and man, that's too difficult. That requires too much energy, man. And I think that's a very wise perspective about hatred. Like, man, you have to really be intentional about this, right? You have to be committed to this so that you re-energize that hate, right? You re-energize that. You know, I remember, I think maybe it was Sunday. My daughter was talking to me about, what were we talking about? We were talking about blackface, right? Blackface, right? Vaudeville, blackface, that sort of thing. And she was just like, it was such a vulgar comedic expression of her. Like, who would think that this was funny? You know, this is my eldest daughter, right? She's just like, why would somebody think that that's funny? You know, like, you know, to to black up and to these big kind of comical red lips. And I said, well, if you want to, if you hate somebody, you have to like commit to re-energizing that hate, right? You have to commit to like dehumanizing them. You know, it's a full-time occupation. It's not something that can be done passively. If you want to like dehumanize and brutalize somebody, you got to be like, you in this to win this. I'm committed to this. You know what I'm saying? And it's like all that energy that you're putting into hate, you could be putting into love. And that's the other side of this, man. I think that, you know, some of us, Muslims especially, you know, some Muslims, man, you talk about love too much, they start getting, they suspicious of your shahada. Now, wait, are you really Muslim or are you Christian? Wait, hold on. Imam, you know, Imam was talking about love a lot. You know, he might need to check his Aqidah, man. You know, make sure he's Muslim. You know what I'm saying?
This way of life was supposed to make our lives easy, though. That's the thing.
Right.
You know, people, folks will get into teaching it in such a way that is so constricted, so devoid of love, so devoid of mercy, so devoid of compassion. You know, you got to be really wary and protective of that. It's so interesting because I have a friend of mine who's always saying, you know, like he was saying, the way I practice my way of life is through love. The way I practice my way of life is through love. I'm in love. And, you know, I even have to love my enemies. And so I was like trying to like, you know, just really kind of understand all that encompasses. But I think, you know, yeah, it's like we, you know, I feel like this is a very interesting conversation.
No, this is kind of like the real stuff of Islam. You know, this is when this religion and this teaching becomes real. You know what I mean? You know, what's really there? What's on the inside? What's in your heart? What motivates you? What's inspiring you? You know, and the Prophet ﷺ stood very firmly against injustice, but he wasn't a hater of people. Right? He hated injustice, so much so that he was willing to risk his own life to remove injustice. But he wasn't a hater of people. You know, he finishes the chapter. He says, "This is to your point, because you've been kind of striking that realness chord, you know, throughout the conversation. This is with the understanding that you have not done wrong if you are repulsed by the hatred you harbor and do not act in accordance with it." So he's saying, look, if you feel this hatred towards somebody, but it doesn't lead you to harm them, then you're not a person living in sin. To merely have that feeling, but you restrain yourself from acting according to its dictates, you're not a person living in sin, right? So sometimes those feelings are irrepressible. So with that, I think Amir is informing me that we put 15 minutes of Q&A. So we're gonna move to Q&A. Just a short. This is what I want, actually, short, leisurely conversations. And I'm gonna let Amir guide the Q&A, inshallah.
Well, he's waiting on those questions. Someone commented that in the process of praying, I think it's Honey Muhammad, in the process of praying for the people you dislike, especially those who hurt you, I believe there is healing for me too, which is relief from the sadness that they've caused. So I thought that was That's a beautiful statement. Yeah. That's a beautiful statement. You know. Yeah. Amir, do we have any other questions?
One question we have is, what is the way that you yourself have gotten over the
Honestly, man, praying, the way that I myself have gotten over a grudge / anger is praying for the person, right? Is praying for the person. You know, that's the way that I've gotten over grudge / anger, is that being able to raise my hands and pray for the person. I find that I feel much better, even if, you know, I persist in not wanting to have anything to do with them. I feel much better. if I can pray for them. Alhamdulillah.
I would say, actually, I'm glad that question was raised because I think this is a little, I don't know if it's a tip or something that's useful that people can utilize. Actually, I think it was at that same talk that you talked about where you were saying that, like, if you're having beef with somebody, to give them a gift, right? To give them a gift.
Yeah.
For reconciliation and things like that, right? So, I challenge myself that if it's someone who I don't like, or they've done something to me and I'm like, I'm still not able to get over it. Sometimes I'll just make some type of peace offering. You know what I'm saying? That alleviates things for me, because I don't really hold grudges. If I'm holding a grudge, you did something pretty bad. But the other piece is, and I was sharing this with someone, ever since my mother passed, I just realized, like, life is so short, and my cut cards are very small. So that's a Black folkism. I don't even like our cut cards for playing spades or what have you, but it's my cut cards are very small, are very few. So I just kind of when I perceive there to be friction, I don't let this go on. I actually just confront people. You know what I'm saying? And I'll just say, like, hey, especially if they're, my fellow brother and sister in Islam, is there an issue? I just want to know, because I don't want to perceive or assume. Because what happens is you think someone did something to you, or they don't like you. You don't know what the issue is, or you think it's about something. So every time you see them, it becomes weird. And then it continues to become weird. And then it's like, oh, I don't like that person when you see them. And these are just needless emotions. Like you said, it takes so much more to be angry and to hate a person than it is, because it's not our fitrah, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just not our origin. That's not how we are originally made. So I just like, hey, it seems like there's a little tension or friction. I just want to, if I did anything, please let me know. And usually people will be like, no. And even if there really was something, by this time they think about, like, was it that deep? It probably wasn't that deep. I'm gonna just go ahead and be like, nah. And so it's just smooth after that. So that's kind of like mine is more of a preventative measure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head, man. Look, all the rest of the questions are directed to Ndidi, inshallah. No, but real, I mean, how much longer do we have on the Q&A, man?
5
Okay, alhamdulillah. So any other questions, ideas? Ndidi, any parting thoughts? Anything you'd like to share?
Were there any more questions? I'm gonna defer to the resident sheikh in the midst. I'm just
no sheikh. I'm barely even a resident, man. So we'll end it there, inshallah. Indeed, I'll let you close out dua. We always like when you make dua.
All right, so أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Ya Allah, we thank you for blessing us with this space. We ask that you continue to bestow your mercy, your graciousness, your blessing, your protection, your bounty upon us. Ya Rab, please bless those, all of us out here who are dealing with any type of diseases of the heart, of the ruh, of the heart, of the soul, of the spirit. Remove any inequities, any illnesses, any diseases, any harm known to us or unknown to us. Guide us upon the straight path and let us return to you, pleased and pleasing. Amen.
Ameen. Ameen. Jazakallah khair.